Let's go back to the Ionic documentation here and looking at the customizing the grid. So I'm on the same page that I was just before with the under theming and responsive grid here. And at the bottom of the page, the very end, there's a label called customizing the grid, and we have some different code here. And we're going to go through this code and see what we can actually use this for. As a default, the Ionic is using these, where to go? Here we are using these values here. So for example, for the LG, it's 992, the medium is 768, and so on. And we can use those. If we don't write anything, they're just going to be using them as a default. So it says over here if the description with the minimum width of this, and so on and so on, like with the responsive media queries. But down here we can just take the code here with the columns, the padding, dash width, which is kind of not the specific for the responsive, but I'm going to show you what they're actually able to do. Grid, of course, is how many grids do you want to use. As a default is 12. That's kind of what is being built on. As every time you start an Ionic project, the system knows, or it's set to be 12. So if we go to our theme here and our variable.scss, and this is actually why my color is purple. I'm going to keep this. And I'm just going to paste this in the shared variable here. As you can see, the grid is right now 12. And we can change this if we want to have something else. So let's change it to something else in a little while. This is awesome. So really fast we can do changes to how how design is being structured by just doing small changes to variables here. Let's try with this padding here. So we're setting from 10 to 40 instead. So default is 10. Right now we didn't see the change actually, so we don't know, but make sure you look at the image right now, how it looks now compared to when I change it to 10 instead. What am I writing? Oh yeah, I'm trying to add some background color to this column here, or row actually, grid. Well, there we go, I go to the grid, which we'll be using later in the video actually. I don't know why I did it now, but that's okay. So everything will be this dark gray right now in a moment. But let's go back to the code and actually change the value of my padding here. So let's set this to 10 and again check the actual width between things here. Set it to 10 quickly and update. Yeah, we go. You could see the actual change before it happened here. But that's setting something globally through a variable that is being defined. So the $ and the name grid padding width is something that Ionic set up. You can find all of these on Ionic's own. Right now I just changed the columns from 12 to 6. This will create a kind of problems with my design because I went from a half, so instead of having 12 I have 6, and you can see it also interferes with my design now. So because of this, and because I use these here, they are actually responding differently to the design, the flow of it, because it's no longer 12, there's only 6 columns to work with, and that kind of means that when it says MD6, this will now be 100% compared to the other one, whereas if we put it to 12, it will be half, so that's 50% width for each column. But that's kind of a thing you can do as well, and the default here just means this is set for default, so every time you do a project, this is what it's going to be. It's just an indicator to show that. Let's see, so now we're back to the normal one here with the same padding and so on. So this is kind of just one of the many we can use to change the values of the system here. And that is really awesome. Again, this I highlighted by mistake, but let's go back to this. I want to show you this with the grid tiers, so the responsive part. This I'm going to copy as well, so put in these grid breakpoints and grid max width, and let's just paste them in here. And right now they also have, these are the default values that are being set by Ionic. As standard it's 0 and up to, from 0 to 768, as you can see in my right now. Let's put it in, and once I click at the number up there, 768, once we get past that, it's going to break. So that's a breakpoint with responsive media queries. So media queries have a breakpoint we set, and that's this one in this case. So if we change this to something in the 600, 500s, bad memory, the breakpoints will be smaller now. So we have to go further down before it actually breaks. So let's see, here we go, at the 68, There we are, and it breaks. So this is kind of us setting or changing the default value for the style, the flow of the page. So we can just set them to whatever we need for our design. And that's really powerful because now we don't have to write a lot of extra code in our CSS. So media queries for this view, and then we have to change these to fit it. We just do it in here and it fits everything together with the Ionic rows, the Ionic columns, the grids, and so on and so on. And that is amazing compared to what we were used to do. There are of course some small issues compared to like normal. If we create our own, we're forced to use their way of structuring it compared to using our own where we can do whatever we want. At the bottom here we see, let's go back here, let's see what we're going to do. I actually can't remember. We are going to just do weird things. Right, I'm going to add something to my grid right now. So instead of, sometimes you don't want the page to 100% as I'm indicating with the mouse. I only want it to be like a fixed width. And if you go to the column of the grid here, so ion-grid, and we put inside these bigger and smaller than, greater and less than sign, we just put fixed. So instead of having a width of 100% no matter how big it is, we're actually saying to the system, hey man, don't create something that goes from 100% all the time, but create something that's centered, create something that has a fixed width. So in this case 960, which is kind of the default width of many different systems that's online. And we kind of sometimes want to use this, and they also have a preset variable here. So we can change the 960 to 860. And that's again for large screens, which this is, and now you can see it changed, and you can also see the value over here has changed from 960 to 860. So that is just awesome as well for us, because that leaves us with doing less, changing more, but doing less code for this. And this is something that's really powerful as well, and really where this Ionic can help you shine. It's being built on something called Bootstrap actually, but I really like how they structure this compared to some of the other things I've seen, and we can just really quick create our design and implement it by using these small different things, and that's awesome.